have it for those that can't attend. So welcome. I have my partner with me, who is Evelyn Arevalo from Georgia. And so we're both going to be talking today. We may hide our faces. I'm not a fan of watching my face on the corner of the screen, but so we're both we want to welcome everybody. This is the first session of the Summer Institute. And although it's not summer, we are very much preparing for that. And so Evelyn, do you want to tell them a little bit about yourself?
Yes, welcome everybody. I am from Georgia. I have been a recruiter for a little bit over 16 years. And I am originally from Guatemala. I live in Gainesville. And I guess that's about it. I mean, all I do is recruiting and little other things, but mainly recruiting. Yes.
Well, welcome. So I'm going to hide my video. Evelyn, you can leave yours up or hide it if you want it, but we just wanted to say hi so you recognize the face with the name, and then we'll kind of focus more on the screens. And I talk a lot with my hands, so I'm just going to kind of hide my face. Probably for my own distraction. Okay, so what we're talking about today is really mapping tools. I know a lot of people are familiar with Google Maps, and so this is not a training so much on how to add layers or points to Google Maps. This is more of looking how you can use it. We will point you in the direction of, if you were looking for a Google Maps training on how do I get my locations onto the maps, we have that. We can definitely send that to you. But this is really looking at, how to look at different tools and what might be helpful for you. So we're going to go through a bunch of information. Hopefully it's helpful. If at any point you have any questions, please use the chat box. I will try to pay attention to that. Evelyn also. So we want to just welcome everybody, and we're glad that you're joining with us. We are going to record all of these sessions. So some of you later on may be listening to this at a different date. But our goal is to provide through all of the sessions information that's really helpful for any program at this point in time, of things that they can do to really organize and make sure that they're doing effective IDNR. So starting out, why should you even use a mapping tool? We really feel that it helps you visually see. Having been a recruiter myself and having covered areas, it was really helpful to go to an area and be able to open up my phone and see what was around, to be able to kind of organize my time and mileage, to be able to say, okay, this is the closest place from here, and to make sure that I wasn't missing key places. I've been to places where I've gone in and helped, and you go and there's a field and you need to kind of pin that field because later on it's going to have watermelons, or there's a lot of different reasons that you can use it, but one of the biggest one is to optimize your time and really be able to prepare where you're going to go in the future. So here's an example. I think this is maybe this is a Vermont one, but that just kind of shows what you could do with just different icons, so you can visually say, oh, well, this one's fruit or vegetables, or this is chicken, or this is going to be a dairy farm. So it says why use a map. You can add those key locations as you're out, and you don't. I remember years ago we'd have maps. You have the paper map, and then you have your list of your places, and you're trying to drive while looking at the paper map and make sure the address is correct, and it just saves hours of time to be able to have these visually. You can also use it as a way to go back to click on a pin that you visited before, and if you've updated the information, we'll talk a little bit about that. You could see the last time someone visited. You could see the key contact there. So it really, this idea that visually, yes, it's helpful, but could you also add another element that would let you actually be able to keep track of it and click on it and see, when the last time it was visited. So how many new recruiters, and I'm just think about this, are hired across the country every year? And then the question, if you're a supervisor, if you have any control over this, are we literally starting over every single time a new recruiter comes into an area? And I've seen this a lot. You get, well, so-and-so left and now we have a new recruiter. And sometimes there's no data trail. There's no, hey, this is where Jessica was last year. These are the farms she visited. You could just step right in and go to the next step of, with these particular farms. But what happens is we say, oh guys, we visited, our job is to visit all of these farms. Here's your list. Go ahead and get started. They don't know the last time someone visited. They don't know the last time anybody was talked to. They don't know if the same guy has been talked to on the farm, or whether every time you're starting over and having to build a relationship with someone that's never heard of it before. So it says, do we develop comprehensive data on our farms and agribusinesses to target where we need to be, when or who we should be contacting, even now during the pandemic? I feel like the pandemic has given us a chance to step back and do some of that organizing time that we have, but it shouldn't be an excuse. It shouldn't be like, well, we're in the pandemic, so we really can't do this or this. That should not be an excuse. The pandemic may be around a lot longer. We have to be able to continue to mold and to continue to find ways to be effective. So it says mapping tools can really help with this. All states should have a system developed to track farm visits and locations. So with IDRC, we are not saying that you have to do it one particular way, but we are saying that we believe in the visualization tools. We think that they help streamline things, and we believe that people should be, recruiters, as you're going out, you should be keeping that data. So sometimes people say, well, I don't want anyone to track where what I'm doing. I find that I am a huge believer in keeping track of data. I worked for years with Tennessee, and we were the most underfunded program in the country. And we found that the only way that we could continue to do a good job with limited resources was to absolutely maximize our time. And this mapping really, really, really helped. So here's some things that we think could be stored on a map. Your location, your contacts made, when is a good time to visit? You talk to Diego or you talk to Tom and he says, hey, this is not a good time. 2 months from now is really probably the best time, but you've got to show up at 5 in the morning. Well, that information could be kept on a spreadsheet, that could be uploaded into your data tool, into your map of whatever sort it is. And when that recruiter looks at that pin and clicks on it, it could say, hey, talk to Tom, go in, in May, make sure it's 5 o'clock in the morning. Here's his phone number. And so that is captured. It's not like, oh, what did they say? Who did I talk to? Because paper trails are really hard to keep track of. So, and then is this a farm that needs to be visited each time you're in the area, monthly, quarterly, yearly, or get this off the list? This is doesn't even exist. So here's an example of one that was from a project that I was helping with. And we went out and did a sweep of a particular area or a recruitment effort in a specific area. And each one of us were responsible to visit each one of the farms that were on our list. And our list consisted also of a map with assignments. And so when I got done, I was responsible, or whoever was with us was responsible to put it in a spreadsheet. And then we uploaded it for the recruiters that were going to come later. So they could look at Queso Grande Dairy, for example, and see exactly who you could talk to, where they might live. And, this is just an example of something that you could actually have stored on your map. So some of you are probably going, oh my goodness, if you start storing stuff on a map, like we have to worry about personal identifiable information. And that is absolutely correct. You do not want to put student information. You do not want to put something that's saying, hey, the Gonzalez family lives on Red Road. They're home at this time. None of that kind of things, but things like farms, things like contacts you made can be very helpful. So how do you decide which tool that you're going to use? There's a lot out there. What are you going to do? Maybe obvious, but what mapping tools are a good idea? And you want to kind of think of what what is allowable in your state. If you're not using any maps and it doesn't exist, you might need to talk to somebody above you and say, hey, we wanted to come up with this map. This is what we're wanting to put on it. Is it okay? And some of you may say, hey, I don't have to talk to anybody. I'm just supposed to respond. I'm supposed to manage my area. So I would suggest that your maps go deeper than just pins of places or, just pins as you're driving out. It can be very comprehensive, but you've got to think about what's allowable by your state and what data you'll be storing in your map. So one thing, does it need to be secure? Some states say, hey, anytime you put any information about any of your work, it needs to be on a secure. So we'll talk a little bit about security and how that can be done. Are you going to be updating this map very often? Is this just like, for example, IDRC, which we'll show you in a little bit, is doing monthly maps for H2A and H2B. These are not designed for states to put all their contact information. It literally is just designed as a visualization tool so you can see how many H2A farms you have. So how will you be using the map and how much data is going to be stored in your map? Now, if at any point you have any questions, please do put that in the chat box. We'll pay attention to that. But like I said, so here's an example of, we wanted to kind of we're going to look at 2 different types of maps today. One is Google Maps, which a lot of people are familiar, and one is called Batch Geo. And I want to go through what Google Maps does and what Batch Geo does. And so you can kind of see which one would be a good fit, or which probably will happen. A lot of times you can do in hybrid, and sometimes you use one and sometimes you use another, depending on what you want to do. So great things about Google Maps, they're 100% free, which I know most of us, that is great news. They have customizable icons. So you can actually go in, and if you have a goat farmer, add a goat, you can make your own icons for that. You can highlight areas. So you can see on the map here that we have up. Let's say you wanted to assign recruiters different areas, and you could say, hey, this is your area, and you just highlight that. You can have multiple spreadsheets. So Google has this thing called layers, and layers are separate spreadsheets. So every layer can have up to 1,000 data points. So that means 1,000 farms or 1,000 locations can be on there. So that's up to 10,000 possible places on a map. So you may say, well, we'll never get that. Some states have a state map and they're right at about 10,000. It just depends on how much data you're keeping and what your purpose of the spreadsheet is. So other cool things about Google Maps, I like to use the where you can actually, I'm forgetting the name of it here, where you can actually satellite view. You can look at the satellite view and see where particular places are. You can navigate from your smartphone with multiple points on a few clicks. You can click multiple places and say, hey, how far is Smart Dairy? How far is Baca Dairy? And be able to see, oh, this one's 2 miles away, this one's 4 miles away. Let me go first to the 2 mile one, and then let me swing around and get to the other one. It often will really show you clearly what addresses are not correct. It'll give you an error message and say, hey, these 16 are not right. And so you can go in and fix that. They can be edited from a smartphone if you're the owner or the editor of the map. So you can make changes there. You can drop pins on your account. Basically, it may not fall exactly on that map unless you add it on. But let's say I have my Google account. I'm driving around and I pin every farm location or nursery field that I see, and later on go ahead and put them on my official map. And like I said, here it says use satellite images to where farms might be. And I know that sometimes you'll have a farm that's way out in the middle of nowhere, and you can actually follow the satellite and look at like where the electrical goes and be able to see, this is where the house that I'm trying to find. I can look at it via satellite maps, and that's kind of a cool way to keep up with things. So somebody just raised their hand. If you'll just go ahead and put your question in the chat box, that probably would be the best way to go forward. So on the downside, security is often a concern. So if you don't set your map up right, it could actually be searchable by somebody else. We have seen, I search Google Maps for different types of maps, and I'll find, other people's maps. So if you're not setting it up right, then definitely someone could find your information. And so if you put in there, Farmer Bill is a real jerk and I can't stand him, and then someone comes across that could be, obviously that could be a real bad situation. So how do you ensure that it's private and non-searchable? You want to make sure, and some people will go in and do Google Maps and just say, oh, here's all my kids in my area. That is not how they should be used. You definitely want to make sure it's not something that people could stumble across. So there is another option of something that with IDRC that we're starting to use. It's called Batch Geo. And so Batch Geo is a little bit, unfortunately, it's not free, but it is pretty reasonable. And so you literally can Google Batch Geo and kind of look at some of the pricing on that and some of the features. For example, I think for 10 people to use it for an entire year, it's about $1,000. So you're looking at like a one person yearly, it's about $100. So this is it's a little bit different from Google Maps in that you can make, the way that we're using it with IDRC is all of our states have 2 accounts, and they can create as many maps as they possibly can. But the idea is kind of that somebody is like the map gatekeeper that says, you could give them a spreadsheet and say, hey, we want you to make a map. They make it and they get it out to everybody. They do have a small free version, like if you have 10 or 12 or less than 25 locations that you want to map in a day, that you can just go ahead and make your own personal map and it'll do that. But there is a fee with it. So one of the things that we have to kind of work on for IDRC for one of our projects this year, it was to create a tool that we could map out farms and visually see it, but that could be more secure than Google Maps. And so this was an option that we found that was reasonable to work with. So currently we are making H2A maps for every state. And this includes housing and work site lists for every single, state in the country. And so let me show you quickly where that is, just so that you can, if you're not aware of that, you can know where to get that. Let me see if I can share this real quick. So if you go to our website and you scroll down, a lot of the things that we have that are new, we kind of keep it right here in the beginning. And if you click here where it says view maps and lists, this is something we were doing it just for our IDRC states. And then we realized, you know, we probably should try to just make this available for everybody. So we absolutely love to use the Spotlight tool, which if you haven't used, I think we have a link to it somewhere on here. If not, I'll show it to you in just a little bit. But we pull ours down from them. And then Justin actually made a quick tool to be able to also pull. Spotlight does not pull the housing site. And he made a kind of a little spider to be able to pull that information off. And so we also have that included. So if you look, it's got Arizona's state list is this first one. Then we have a Batch Geo map. Then we have Arizona's H2A and relevant H2B list, housing list. So you could make your own. And then right next to it, I tell you what, while you're listening, let me put this in the box so you can kind of play around with it. Then right next to it is a map with just their housing. And so when you click on this, if I wanted to look at Arizona's thing, it says the map is private. So right now on these are just, you can just, all of our maps have IDRC as the, no, I don't want to say that, as the password. And so you can get on there, you know, and look at any of the maps. But this is an example of a Batch Geo map. And so it's kind of interesting. If I click on one of the pins, it'll give me the information, and then I can find all of this that's, you know, listing here. It'll tell us that, you know, where these guys are staying. But I also have over here on this side, I have this kind of a little key that I can play with to say, you know, I want to look at specifically the begin dates. I want it organized by the dates that they're coming in. So all of these would be the yellow ones would be the most recent ones. And then these would be the ones that were the time before that. So Batch Geo lets you kind of interact, and on your phone, you can actually interact with it also. The one thing, if you have an Apple phone, there is a native app that you can put on your phone. Android phones do not have to have the app, but Apple does. And so if I have this on my phone, if I click on this, there will actually be this little, you can barely see it. Let me see if I can scroll. Let me look at one higher, maybe that'll help. There'll be a little arrow right there. I don't know if you can see it good. Password, someone just asked the password, it's IDRC, capital IDRC. So if you open this up on your phone, you can click on that little arrow and it'll use your whatever navigation tool that you have on your phone, and you'll be able to use the GPS capabilities. So we are creating these maps for everybody monthly, maybe every 6 weeks, depends on our work schedule and how crazy everything is. So the last time this was updated was in March. We'll update it again this month, and we're including all states, and then kind of a little bit of information here. And then if you're not familiar with Spotlight, we really want to give kudos to them because we stumbled across this, and there's a guy that does this completely. I'll tell you what, I'll put this in the box here too, if you've not seen that. Just so that you can see, this is Illinois, but you can put your own state. Let's see, let's put Nebraska. So we'll click on there, and then it'll show us just Nebraska. So Nebraska is not a huge H2A state. If we were to go to Georgia, for example, it's going to look really different. You can see, if I can find Georgia down here. Here they are. So you'll be able to look and see kind of where your H2A areas are right here. So like Valdosta, obviously this area has tons. So if your workers don't have a smartphone, first of all, I would suggest that you get them a smartphone, because I know that's not my place, but they definitely need that. They can do the work also on their desktop, or if they happen to have a tablet or something like that, but definitely need a smartphone. If recruiters are just doing flip phones, it's really not going to help them with their time to be able to use those GPS tools, because they're still in the world of paper maps, which is good to know how to do that. But I would definitely suggest that would be something that they really would need. And again, I understand resources can be slim, but so if you use the Spotlight tool will help you actually see the PDFs of the actual work orders. And so you can go in and see the actual form that they use to request workers, and included in there will be the information of their place of, all these different places that they're going to work, what kind of housing, directions on how to get there. So, this is something that's available for everybody, and you can kind of click over here and then see that information. So definitely this is a tool that you can't do any navigation directly from Spotlight, but it is super helpful and really, really a good resource. So we just want to make sure people know that that's there. So moving on, I know we have limited time today, so I want to make sure I'm not getting lost in my own mapping junk here. So this, like I said, is something that we definitely want to make sure that it's available to all. There was a comment, it says, I'm in virtual tears of gratitude. I've been trying to self-teach myself how to turn the data set. We understand, we have been there. Spotlight's really helpful. And then that was Justin, who works with IDRC. We were really understanding that, knowing that work site is one thing, and with H2A, it's really helpful to know housing sites. And so he figured out how to create this little tool that would give them the monthly lists from the JSON data. So that's something that we'll have available for everybody. Moving on, so we talked a little bit about Justin. If I ever have a son, I'll name him after you. Yes, Justin did it. That was something he really wanted to figure out, and he called me and said, I think I've got it. And so we were pretty excited. So going back to Batch Geo, I mentioned that Google Maps can keep up to 10,000 data points. Batch Geo can keep up to 25,000 data points on each map. So the only difference is there's not layers, it's one spreadsheet. So if you've got 15 different spreadsheets, we do have a training that if you don't get a time to see it, or you're signed up for a different session, on Excel and AbleBits. AbleBits is a tool that will let you take multiple spreadsheets very easily and combine them into one. I would suggest, if you have to take your data and put it into one, that's definitely something that you'll want to know how to do. And we do have that training there. But Batch Geo is super easy to create a map. Some people get lost in the layers and how to upload it. You literally can copy and paste the document into Batch Geo, and I'll show you here in just a second. So here's an example of, you copy and paste drag your file right into here. And then you set your options, and I'll show you in real time in just a second. You set your options, and then it lets you pick. One of the challenges, if you have a spreadsheet, for example, when we used to get the H2A and when we would pull it down from the government site, we'd put it all into something. A lot of times you'd have a housing site and a work site in the same spreadsheet. This lets you pick. If you had multiple address locations for some reason in a spreadsheet, you can pick which address you want, and then you can make that map. And so it's pretty simple to use. There's some different things that you can do, like different types of maps. If you want clustering, like Spotlight has those circles, and it'll say 465 in this area, and then you click on the 465 and it'll then show you 30 here and 10 here. And you can also have your links decide if you click on something, it'll open up in a new window. You can also hide your map addresses. So let's say you wanted to share it with a colleague, but you didn't want to give them the actual address. You just wanted them to kind of see where something was. So you can hide that. And then there's also something called the Disable KML report. One of the things, if you create a Google map, someone can go in and get the KML report, export basically the report that is kind of building that. And that can actually be kind of pulled out from the map. And so you can disable this on Batch Geo so it's not available. So there's a few more things that you can do. And then there is this privacy setting. So you can decide if you want it public, unlisted, or just absolutely password protected, and it's not available just on a searchable way. It's only if they have that password, and then they can access that. So I'll show you here. Let me go ahead and do that. Check on time, make sure I'm okay. Okay, so let me show you what that looks like. Make sure I can share my screen. So here is an example of just, have a Batch Geo account. I can see it right here. If I want to, let's see if I can pull a spreadsheet over from somewhere else. So I've got Wisconsin's data, for example, and I'll pull it over here. You can see I'm just kind of moving it. You can't see it very well, but I've actually got a file there, and it just basically came on in. So I can then say I want to set my options. So let's say, okay, do you like this street address? Yeah, that's the right street address. Is there state Providence? It's going to have to pull from here. And then I can say, okay, I want to make the map. So then it'll start doing its geocoding. And you can see there's maps below that we've made, and it'll take just a little bit. It's got 40 seconds to go, 30 seconds to go. So it'll work on the map, and then it'll give me an option to go ahead and view it and come back to this. So let me see, there's a lot in a lot of things here in Wisconsin. So we're 14 seconds to go. So you can kind of see it, Google it, it'll do like a little winding clock, and then it'll say, okay, so now it says it's done. And so it's giving me here, it's saying there are 6,692 different locations here in Wisconsin that could possibly be. I could set up a password and say, the password could just be open. I'll put the name on here. Can't type. And I'm not going to make it public. I'm not going to make it unlisted. I'm literally just going to make it so it's an internal thing that I can only share if I have, if they have the password. So then I'll save it. It'll give me this URL that we can do, and then I can see the map. So I can take a look at this map. Now, you see a few random ones that are not exactly where we would want them. One of the differences between BatchGeo and Google is, let's see, yeah, Gerald Zink. Let's see, if there's no address, like here we just literally have Gerald Zink, it randomly finds some other place. So these, you would know that these ones are not good addresses. Something's missing with this. Obviously this south branch doesn't have the rest of the information we need. So you can find the problems that you have and then be able to kind of fix those and update them. So I can actually go in, take a look at Wisconsin, and maybe I say, you know what? I only want to see beef cattle lots. I don't want to see everything else. And then I can go in and look closer and see these places and all of their, different little links. So again, over here on this side, you can kind of see if I don't want if I want to edit the map or do anything, I can do it from right here. If I want to cluster, if I don't want cluster view and I just want these maps instead, I can just, just the links there. I can say, no, I want cluster too. So there's some things that you can do to kind of play around with it right there. It says, can you make individual maps have different privacy settings, or is there one privacy setting that applies to all maps created for the account? Every single map that you make, you set the privacy settings up. So you just go in there and decide what that particular map. So it's not by account, like you can't say, okay, all of Sally's maps are going to be, this particular password or this particular setup. It's literally based on every single map that's made. So that's kind of the setup for that. So that's a real quick demo of what it looks like. So the downside of this is, okay, what if I want to update the map? You literally are going to just pull down that spreadsheet and then put a new one in. So for example, for the maps that we're doing for these H2A maps, we did not want to have to come up with a new URL every single time. And so there is a way that you can actually save to have the same name, that you can update it and they can still access it at the same link. And so all of our maps will still be, like Arizona, it'll still have the same name, but we can go in on the back end, update the map, and then go ahead and have that information there. It's a simple little thing and may not be that important to you guys, but when you're doing a bunch of maps for a lot of places, every time that you have to do the web work to have a new link and stuff, it's kind of a pain in the butt. And so we were trying to figure out how to save some of that time so that we don't have to do that. I also do our website. So once again, Justin was making my life easier by doing that. So here are some of the pros, some of the cons. Super easy to make the map. Security is good. It's not searchable. It's not found unless you send that direct link to them, and it's kind of an in-house thing. You can interact with the map, change the data like I showed based on the key. You can use it with your navigation apps on your smartphone. You can use the same URL for the maps like I just mentioned. The cons, of course, is that it costs something. 10 accounts is $1,000 a year. Only one account is needed though. Like for example, a state as big as Oregon, there's no limit on the number of maps that you make. So you could make, 50,000 maps and there's no like, okay, you've had too many people view your data or anything. There's no way that each month it renews, and it's virtually impossible to view it too much. It does support only one spreadsheet. And if you make updates to the map, you definitely need to make to the spreadsheet, you need to make a new map. Questions? If anybody has any questions, please, again, feel free to ask those in the box. Okay, so there's there's a really cool couple other things that are really helpful that you might be interested in doing. And we're going to switch over to Evelyn in a bit, and then she'll give you a perspective from a recruiter of using it in real time now. But one of the things that I think is really cool is sometimes you see maps and they seem to have the borders of like school districts. And you think, how in the heck do you get those borders there? Like, well, how do you do that? So this resource that I'm going to mention is for Google Maps. So unfortunately, you could possibly, because your batch geo is one spreadsheet, this is definitely going to apply more to Google Maps. So over here on the side, if I can keep the right slide, let me move a few things. There's something called a KML layer. And so the KML layer, you can actually upload it as a layer to your Google Map. And there are KML layers that are found that are county lines, school district lines, and zip codes. And so I know sometimes your areas are very much divided up by counties or very much divided up by school districts. And so I do have a link, and let me see if I can just open that and share this with you of where you can find this. So this is specifically from the census. They have a bunch of what they call cartographic boundary lines. And so you can do it by congressional district. But if you scroll down, it'll say, if you want to see county, it'll have here all of these files, and you can go through and find your particular county in there and upload that. There's nation, there's region, there's states. And then here you can ask for specific things. Like I want to see Alabama's, let's see, do you want to allow downloads? Okay, fine. It'll send me whatever's available for Alabama. And then there's census, city, subdivisions. There's a lot of different things, but then there's like the school districts. And so you can take a look and see exactly what they have available for school districts. And so you can actually go into the Google Map and add another layer and add one of those files. And then it will let you very much be able to see. Good idea. There's a link. I'll send you a link right now. Hold on. I'm going to move this little box so I can see behind. Okay, so here is the link. And so these are the boundary files that you kind of play. So go find what your particular one would be. Let's say I take a look at the county. It's going to give me the zip. It's going to give me this file that's going to come down that I can then take a look at and open it up. And I'm going to have to find my particular state, my particular file. Let's see what it looks like. I'm going to have to go in and find that that specific thing. So just a kind of an extra tool that if you're already doing Google Maps and you're saying, hey, I've got that figured out, this might be something that's helpful. Or you might look at somebody's map and think, how in the heck did you get that? So this over here, when we added this map, you could see all these different layers that I could click on and say, I just want to see Washington Township, or I just want to see Warren Township. And then it'll show up right there. We already mentioned the Spotlight tool. I just wanted to keep that in the slides for anybody that, just wanted to use that. Again, should save us many hours in trying to, I know a lot of places have been trying to, type that out. I spent a good amount of time doing this for states where I would literally go to the deleta.gov site and type and copy and give them maps and say, hey, here's all your H2A. And when we came across this, I just thought I was going to do a dance. And so we're still very happy with that. So I want to turn the time over to Evelyn. I've had the pleasure of being able to work with Evelyn several times, and she's just a very, very good recruiter. And so I'm going to stop share so that Evelyn can kind of take over, and I'm going to be quiet so that she can kind of share what she has.
Thank you, Jessica. Let me see. I need to start sharing my screen. Yeah, give me a second. I'm gonna start sharing. This is the PowerPoint that you were showing, right, Jessica?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, how do I do this? Like, I want to make it big.
You should be able to go to slideshow.
Yes. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Welcome everybody. For those they were not here when I presented myself, my name is Evelyn, and I am from the state of Georgia. I've been a recruiter for a little over 16 years. And I had the pleasure to work with Jessica many times, and I actually am very grateful to her because she's the one that showed me how to use the Google Maps. At the beginning, I wasn't sure if I wanted it, but one time she came to Georgia and she did a re-interview for us. And I don't know how she was doing it because she was flying from one place to another. So from then on, I made it my mission to learn how to use the Google Map, and thanks to her, I'm using it now. I'm grateful for that. It's a very good tool. The state of Georgia, once I started using Google Map last year during the pandemic, I didn't know how to present myself to families, or sometimes families did not know who to call when they came to Georgia, because as everybody knows, families comes to different counties, different cities, and sometimes families just go to a place they don't know who to get in touch with. So I decided to make this map where it has all the recruiters' faces. So let me go ahead and I want to go ahead and let me share. Let me share my Google share. Oh, give me 1 second. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. So I decided to make a Google map with all of the recruiters' faces and information. So that way, at the time when the family actually clicks, so they arrive to one school district, to any place in the state of Georgia, they could just click on the face of the recruiter, and it will give them their phone number so they can get in touch with them. The cool thing about this is that we didn't just created the map, also created a QR code. So that way, anytime I can send the QR code, or I can, like if I go and recruit it now, because right now we're doing it by phone and we also visiting families, I can take the QR code and share it with crew leaders, farmers, families. And that way, even if they leave the state of Georgia, they can come back, and anytime when they come back to Georgia, anywhere, they can just open the QR code, or I can give them a business card, which also has a stack that I put the QR code in our business card. That way they can scan it and know who to call when they arrive in Georgia. So that's one of the good things that we have done in Georgia. We have also done the resource map. The resource map is like whenever we are recruiting, we want to make sure that we wanted to make sure that we had the essentials for families. Most of the times the families come to Georgia and the question is like, where do I go to the health department? Is there any food banks? Different resources. So we decided to put it on a map, and that way when we're recruiting and a family asks for something, we can just easily click to any of the resources, and it'll show us the address or what's closest to the family where they are living. Another thing that I would like to show you, and I was talking to Jessica about this, is that in the past, we talked about adding layers to Google Map, but after so many layers, like if you want to add or take away, I find out that you can actually open your data and neither delete a road or add a road. If you add a road, you can actually work with what you already have in your map instead of adding a new layer of information. So let me see if I can do this. Add a road. You can add an address to whatever layer you're working on. Let's see. I'm a little slow, so.
You're good. There was a question while you're typing that they said, is this map public or do you need to have the link of the map? And I think they were referring to the one where you had the recruiters
Okay.
on it.
Yeah, with the recruiters, it should be public. It should be public. That's something that we were talking with the IDNR coordinator, Bernardo Sanchez Vesga, and because it's not identifiable information of any of the families. Actually, we want everyone to know about the recruiters. We want the information to be shared with everyone. That way, when they come, even family, whether the family qualifies or not, we want them to have it just in case, because you know, a family that don't qualify might know someone that do qualify.
Exactly.
Let's say that this is an address and let's put strawberries. So it's gonna, maybe I spelled that wrong. Okay, so it should be in there now somewhere. Once we add that new information, it should be here somewhere. I don't know where did I put it, but where is it? What did I do with it? Jessica, do you see it?
Well, you may have to assign it to, because I think you've got it broken down by health departments and Head Starts, and so it might have to be.
I think I did it on this one though.
Okay.
Didn't I? Maybe not. But I have been adding information to these maps without adding layers to it. So I thought it was really cool to I could teach everybody, instead of adding more layers, they can work with whatever they already have in place. So that this is a very good tool. These other tools that were here, let me go back to my PowerPoint. They're good. It's just to show actually where how to use the ruler, how to mark. See, this is the information about the recruiters. This is the QR code that we created for the recruiters. Also, the resources that we have created. You can create QR codes to any maps that you create for your state. Now, this is the farms that we have in the state of Georgia. And this is the one that I was talking to Bernardo, that we can, instead of adding layers, we can actually start adding to what we already have in place. Another thing that I like about Google Maps as a recruiter is that we can use the, let me see. I don't know if anybody have used this tool before, where you put an address, and it happens to me in one of this at one time where I went to this place and I have researched for nurseries, and when I got there, there was nothing. Okay, and sometimes I question myself, if was ever anything in here. So I like this, where I can just put the little guy after I put the address in there, and it'll show you this address, and sometimes it's going to show you like a little clock in here. Can you see this, Jessica, or did I stop?
So I'm just seeing your map right now. I just see just the map. The chicken house.
Okay, so let me see. I think I stopped. I think I'm not very savvy like Jessica. Sorry about that.
You're good.
Okay. Let's see.
Evelyn said, I'm not very good at this. I've never done it. So, I think it's so helpful for recruiters to hear from recruiters and not just from us. So I really appreciate Evelyn's ability to step out of her comfort zone and show us these things.
Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay. See, I like to use this because, see, I can actually see what was there in 2008. And if the apartments were here, it goes back in time. And sometimes I have found that there was a chicken house in a place, and now there's not a chicken house, it's just a field. This is a good example. Are you able to see these chicken houses or no, Jessica?
Yes.
Okay. See, the same is in this. See, I like to use Google Maps because I can prioritize which families or which places I'm going to visit. We have what we call, we have the occupational surveys, but we also suggest to the districts that for them to run us the new student enrollment list for all the new students that arrive in the school district, whether it is they come from out of state or in the same state of Georgia. So sometimes when I get those as new student enrollment this right here really came handy last year when we were not able to travel, because all I had it was addresses. I didn't know if it was farms where the families were living or it was just houses. The area that I cover is all temporary. I only have one district that has seasonal work. So with the satellite and this feature, I can actually see that there's a chicken houses in there. But once again, if I ever visit that place and there's nothing, I can always go back when I get, and you can see this little clock right here, and you can, if you go back in 2007, you can see that there was no chicken houses in there whatsoever. I guess they were built back in 2018. So I like the fact that before I go out and recruit, I can see where I'm going, what the place look like that I'm going to visit, and also be able to have all these other resources available. Like since I'm a state recruiter, I have to recruit anywhere in the state that they require me to go to. But the problem comes that I don't know every farm in the state. But thanks to the agricultural map that we have now, I have the addresses, I have it on my phone. All I got to do is drive and click wherever I want to, whatever place they ask me to go and recruit, and I have all the information of each farm. Are you looking at the resource, the agricultural map, Jessica?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can go to any of these places. I have added actually pictures like what they have in there. There's a lot of watermelons, as you see, and it tells me like that from what month of the year until what month of the year they are going to be working in there. So it is, to be honest with you, when it comes to Google Map, I love it. I just learned about this other application that Jessica was talking about. I'm intended to learn it too, because I think the more that I learn about how to get around other applications that I can use to, the better. And by the Google Map, you can make it public, you can make it private, you can just share a link, you can share it with other recruiters or anyone in the state that you choose to. Another thing that I was talking to one of the SSPs in our area is they were telling me that when they went out and recruit, sometimes they didn't know they were still working in the county that they're supposed to be working in. Well, Jessica already explained that, but on Google, I like to put like if I'm going to recruit and I'm thinking that I'm in Hull County, I just type Hull County and let me share with you. And it's gonna show me. Let's see. Okay. When I put it on my phone, it's gonna show me like a little dot, a blue dot. That represents my vehicle or me, and it's gonna show me that I'm either inside Hull County or I'm outside Hull County. So I personally love Google Map. I have not tried any other application yet, but like I said, the state of Georgia, we decided to make other maps available for not just the recruiters, but also to help families. And when they arrive in Georgia, the new, let's see. Okay. Now, are you seeing the PowerPoint now?
Yes.
Okay. On these maps, we share it with all of the recruiters. You can just share a link. I like the fact that we also made the QR code, because we can now share it with families, OSYs, anyone that come to the state. But you know, like sometimes I have families, they go to South Georgia. Right now, I'm able to recruit anybody by phone in the state, but as soon as the waiver is over, I know that families are still going to be calling to see who is going to go and sign them up. Now they're going to have the map available, and it's going to show them what recruiter they need to call in order to get the services and get signed up for the program. These, like I say, every time I get the new student enrollment list, I like to see where I'm going. I like to see prioritize. If I see a farm, I know that that's the first place that I'm going to visit, because it's a red flag that the family will probably kind of qualify. The other thing I can mark, these are different, like the tools that Jessica was talking about. I can mark the places where I'm going to be, and that's the way it's going to show in my phone when I pull it up. The other thing is that I can always, you know, reroute. I can make my own route or the places that I want to visit when I go and recruit. I don't just go just with a map that I created, but let's say that the day before, a family called me and they say that they're going to be available in a certain time, and that's the first visit that I have to go to. So I can make my map. I can make my own route. How do I want to? I want to start my day and finish my day. I use the ruler. Sometimes it's not accurate, because, as you know, when you use the ruler, it kind of like it gives you approximately how many miles you're going to drive, but it's a straight line. And usually when it's a straight line, it goes through woods, and so it's not really giving you the exact miles if you're driving through roads. So that's the other thing. Like I say, you can mark the places and you can see how many miles approximately you're going to be driving by the time you finish visiting all the places. The school districts, like I said, if you're in a school district, it's going to show you whether you are in the school district that you are supposed to be recruiting, or you're outside the school district you are recruiting. Now that I think I'm done.
Do you want to do a quick demo of just how you did the route, just so they can kind of see, like, if you were going to do it on your computer, like, yeah. Do you want to show them, because that might be something that's helpful to see kind of in real time?
Yeah, sure. Let's see.
And then while you're setting that up, what we can do is there were some questions on here. It says, can you tell us briefly how to mark a business, how to put the picture and everything, please? I did include a link up here that says there's a training on Google Maps. If this is the first time you've ever really dealt with any Google Maps, I would suggest that you click on that link. Also on our IDRC webinar page, which I'll put a link in the box for that, we have the presentation files, and it literally walks you through how to take a spreadsheet, how to add you know, the listings that you want, and then how to put them on the map, change your icon, and all of that. So definitely check that out. That's something that will walk you through A to Z on exactly how to do that. And so I will put the box on there. And then there was a question of, let me see. Let's see. There was a question here. With the changes of the climate and crop are starting earlier than other years, do you change the month crops for each area? So I think every state can kind of manage their maps on how they want to do that. And so like Bernardo said, he's the IDNR coordinator for Georgia, said, yeah, they update that at least twice a year. Mm-hmm. So there was also a question that was asking if Batch Geo is more accurate than Google Maps. We are doing a pilot right now of Batch Geo, so I can't, I understand exactly what you're talking about with Google Maps. Of you think you're going somewhere and then you end up in a field and it says you're here and you're not there. We can probably report back in a couple months on what we're seeing as far as accuracy, but at this point we're still just kind of getting into using it. So unfortunately I don't have that. They may both send us to the middle of a field if something's not right on how it's mapped. Okay.
So what was, you say the show in real time, how to add, how to,
like if you wanted to create a route, Like I have these 3 addresses and you had on one of the slides, like creating a route of like where you might want to go in a day.
Yes, like I say, you can see, oh my goodness, this thing. Let me see. Okay, like let's say that you want to start here.
Okay, can you, I think you're still showing the presentation. If you want to switch over.
Oh goodness.
No, you're good. You're good. And like you guys, if you have a question, make sure to put it in the chat box. You may keep your hand raised for a while because we're kind of using the chat box to take your questions.
Okay, give me 1 second, Jessica.
You're good. We had one more question that said, I can type into Google Maps a county and see the border. Can I make this result into a KML to make it a layer? Go back to that link that we shared as far as the KML county layers, and that's the easiest way to do that, where you actually just add those on there and Google Maps will recognize it and it'll just be on there on your map that you don't have to search for a county or anything. It'll just be one of the layers that you can see. So that's probably the easiest way to do that.
Okay, let me share. Okay. Can you see this?
Yes, we can.
Okay, you say you want to create a layer, right? Or a place that you can go and recruit.
Yeah.
In real time. Okay. Usually what I usually do, I use these when you see these 3 little dots, and you can add a driving route. And let me go ahead and open this. Let's say that I'm going to start here. It's really sensitive. That's the only thing. And then you kind of want to, let's see. You kind of want to start. Let me see. I don't know why this is not working today with me.
Well, and I just wanted, if you guys see where she's going, you can play around with that right there. She's got that draw line, and then you can either add
You get, this is just to draw a line, like the places that you want, like if you want to mark a place, like different places, or like a whole square, like a whole area that you want to cover, you can just name it, like recruiting day 1, I guess.
Perfect. I think they get the, I think sometimes it's just when you visually see, okay, this was, point A to point B.
That's what this, it gives you different options. It gives you either driving route, add a line if you want to like just mark a place, mark an area that you're going to cover when you are recruiting. And that's the way it's going to show in your phone when you pull up the map that you created. And that's the one thing that I do every time I go out and recruit. I kind of plan my day, and I make my map the day before I go out and recruit, because I usually have all these addresses already prior to going recruiting. So I usually do them the day before. Now, recruiting is unpredictable. So sometimes families will call me like that day and say, hey, can you come a little early? So before I leave, I reroute the places that I want to go out and recruit.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, Evelyn. I think, like I said, for me, I really, really, really value the direct advice of the people that are doing the job. Like, it's been probably, I go and help states, but if you're doing it every day, I just learned from your timeline. I was not even aware that you could do that. So thank you very much for definitely for sharing that. So
yeah, and just make sure that you play around, like to add addresses to the information that you already have before you start adding any layers. That way, it'll save you a whole lot of time.
Well, and there was a comment like, okay, will Google help me kind of optimize my route? So it really doesn't do that work for you to say, you can do it in the way that you're like looking and looking at the pins and thinking, okay, this one's 6 miles from my location, this one's 10 miles. But there isn't like a tool to say, hey, here's the 6 places I want to go. What's the fastest route? Like, you'll still have to figure that out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that would be cool if we had that. Very cool. Okay, so we'll switch over. And again, like I said, I really think it's super helpful to you know, that what she sent me the picture, the map that they did, and I thought, what a great idea. Like I never thought to put faces, and I had done all of these little icons, and I was thinking, how'd she do the faces? And I thought, well, duh, it's a picture, and they turned it into a tiny icon. So
Yeah.
so that for me was very fun to see that. And then, you know, the idea that of the service, the state resources makes just tons of sense. Like we spend all this time doing agriculture, but at the same time, how cool would that be to literally be able to share a link with families and say, hey, here's all the different types of agencies that you could reach out, and you can actually, you know, and show them how to use the map. That is an absolute, you know, ready, helpful thing that we can do right now. So again, thank you very much, Evelyn. I think your insights have been super helpful.
Hey guys, if you guys have any questions, just don't hesitate to reach out to me. Sorry, I wasn't that really savvy when it comes to the computer, but I mean, reach out to me with any questions.
Hey, no, you did great. Okay, so we'll just in closing, what I want to do also before we finish, we've got about 15 minutes before this session is over. We wanted to just kind of share a couple other things that are kind of interesting, that are helpful. There is one called acre value, and you may think, what does this have to do with anything? It's kind of one of those ones that you have to look at it of how you would possibly use it. And we make sure that I'm sharing it in the right way. So acre value is a little bit weird. You can actually put an address, and I'm just going to put maybe I shouldn't put I'm just going to click on somebody's thing. It will give you, like, let's say you can't figure out, okay, this is not helpful. It's a subdivision. Let me back up. So it doesn't matter how, let me just give an address here. So it will give you the alignment of what properties they are. So you can actually click on it and see. Sometimes I've had the problem with trying to figure out if a field belonged to one person or to another person, or how it was aligned. Acre value, it can be a helpful thing if you're looking for land, but it also is a helpful thing to just try to figure out, like, okay, where's the property line for this? And if a farmer tells you to stay off of his property and there's another farm right next to it, you can kind of see, all right, is this the same tract? Does this belong? And if you have a membership, you can actually see who owns it, and it'll tell you the last time it changed hands or something like that. So some states, this is something they might just have someone that has access to this. It's kind of a random tool, but let me put, if you wanted to play around with it, you can always, if anyone has, you can just look up your own home address and kind of see. This one may show you, it's showing you you don't really need to see mine, but you get the idea of, let me just share that link with you. So this is another tool that, like I said, there's been moments that I've needed it. It's not like it's just, you know, an everyday kind of thing, but it's something that's pretty helpful. And then let me share another tool. So I believe it was Sarah Seamount from Idaho shared this, which I thought was pretty cool. So this is similar to what I just shared with you, but it's state hunting maps, and it tells you exactly who owns different properties. And so you can see the value of that. You know, if you're out and thinking, whose land is this? You know, I'm new to this area and I want to, and so for a minimal fee, you can actually get access to your state, and it's overlays of public land. It tells you when it's public, and it also tells you when it's private, and it can tell you who owns it. So it's really designed for hunters, like if you wanted to get permission to use somebody's land. But again, you can see how this could possibly be something that might be helpful. Again, not for every day, but there are lots of times where I've had to canvass a completely new area and I have no idea who owns something, but I really want to, you know, figure out if I can get permission from the farmer or whatever, or I may just see if I can go out there and talk to him. This is something that's kind of a cool thing. So this doesn't have any like side, sorry, it's asking me stupid things. It doesn't have any like anything that you can kind of go on and check and, you know, play around with unless you get a subscription. But if this is something that might be helpful, then it's definitely there. Okay, so we are getting to the end of our slides. Let me get back to where we were. See if I can show you my slides. So I guess we want to just see if before we finish, if there's questions specifically. I'm trying to look on any of the questions that have not been answered yet up to this point. Here is Evelyn and my information. It says, I have a question regarding work under housing. We have found problem with the addresses for the housing. We've discovered that some of them are complete listed or wrong. How do you correct or complete the addresses? So I'm assuming that you're talking about the H2A. So we're pulling it. Ruben, I don't know if you can give us a little bit more information on your question. It says I have a question regarding work order housing. So the work order housing should be coming from the PDF. You can always go back to Spotlight if you have a specific farm. And let me see if I can just share my screen and give you an example of that. Let me just share the desktop and we'll go from here. Let's look at the Spotlight, see if I can find Spotlight again. And let me make sure that I'm sharing the right thing. Yeah, here we go. So let's look at Colorado. You can always go to the Department of the government site that shows the work orders, but let's see here, it'll say Western Range, let's see, Vintage Stone, Timberman Feeding Company. It looks like they're asking for 10 workers. So I can go here and fill out and look at the actual work order that they had. And this is what the farmer is saying is his housing. If you go here, it'll say housing location 1414352 CR22. It's in Sterling, Colorado. And then it'll say exactly where it is. It's stick built. There's total units. So I would say if you're having problems with that, go back to that original PDF, that original list. This is the paperwork that they filled out to be able to the Department of Labor for their H2A. You can always go in here. It'll also tell you when they're going to be working and kind of some of their, what's going on. My suggestion would be to go there and try to see if you can find any updates right there. It says, any advice on accessing the KML map files on the census site and getting them to upload into Google Maps? I'm having issues with the size of the county files. PA has a ton of counties and Google says the file is over the. So you'll have to definitely be able to, I think there's a searchable thing that you can look for your particular state, but it is a lot of files. So you'll just have to have somebody that has the capacity to be able to download those down and then be able to pull out your specific layers that you want, specific areas. So the KML file will have a lot of different, it's almost like an Excel thing. Will have a bunch of, so you just need to find somebody in your state that can have the capacity to be able to download that. Okay, so we are very much getting towards the end of the session. Do we have any other questions, comments, thoughts, or any other way that you can kind of put in the chat box that you use the maps that maybe we haven't mentioned that you think is really key? It says some of the original PDF seems to be off. Some of the addresses don't take me exactly where I need to go. So, all we can go on is what they particularly have. So if something's not exactly right, you'll just have to maybe look at the work thing. There also includes in here an email. Somewhere in here is an email of the person who's in charge of all the hiring. So one suggestion would be that you could actually reach out. Here is h2ajobs@snakeriverfarms.org. You could, establishing that connection with the H2A grower themselves would really be key. If you're finding, hey, I can't find this, then definitely reach out to the person that's in charge of that. They for sure would know those things. Can you resend the link to the census site? I gotta find that, and it should be up higher in the chat box. I'll have to find that here in a second. It also is in the presentation. So if you'll go, you can download the, here it is. I got it right here. So I can put this at the bottom. No, it's not the right one. Hold on. It says in Google Maps, once you find the correct building, you can actually click and drag the pin icon so it matches the real world location without messing up the official address. Very good tip. It says I actually explore the area via satellite view and look for housing that looks like dorms. Very good. Another very good suggestion on that. So I guess that's one of the cool things about learning from each other. Like we listened to Evelyn this morning on the tips of how she, I may have showed her how to start with Google Maps, but she definitely has, taken it and really, been able to use it in the best way that helps her. So very good. I really want to appreciate everybody, let you know that we appreciate you guys listening to us, and I'm going to stop recording for now. I'll stop.